Hello, welcome back to the Care and Conversation Studio. We're here with Adam from Belmont. How are you, Adam?
I'm very well. Nice to be here. Thanks for the invitation, York. Good to see you as always.
Thank you for coming. Do you want to just remind us who you are and what you do?
Yes, my name's Adam Hutchison. I'm the Chief Exec of Belmont Healthcare, along with a couple of other hats in the sector. But it's good to be here again today.
And with 8 care homes?
Seven, yeah. So recently took on another 3.
Yeah.
So that's fun. And I say recently, as recent as Friday, just gone.
Okay, nice.
So that was.
So the ink's still wet on the contracts?
Pretty much. We're just sort of getting the onboarding done of that, which is always fun. But 7 now, with more to come this year.
Nice. Well, last time we talked quite extensively about funding. I think I remember quite clearly the idea that often people are surprised about how much care costs when they arrive to buy care. You know, normally in an emergency situation when it's like, Nan can't go home, we need to find somewhere that can look after her, and oh God, it's how much? Yeah. What's going on in sort of world of funding? Are local authorities playing nice? Is there, what are your views?
I think it's getting a bit of an understanding now, and every local authority is different. But I think there's certainly, over the last sort of 12, 18 months, there's been a shift to it. And I think those, especially when you're working in the more high acuity, people know that there is a limited availability of people that can care for people in that sort of level. I think, especially since we took a pivot 3 or 4 years ago now to be very much home first, even though we're a care home operator. Having, domiciliary and home care services as well has really helped us not be so concerned about that, and creating more of like a life cycle and a journey with individuals, whereby saying, you don't need this just yet. That kind of really changes the psychology of the conversation that you're having with family members. And when you're in that higher acuity space, you can kind of demand more. So we know it's going to be more challenging. It's kind of like, no longer are we expected to do it for 800 to 900 quid a week. We're in that kind of more private fee range. So as a business, we're only probably 20-25% privately funded, and pretty much all of our 70-75% local authority or NHS or CHC funding is of the private sort of figures. So that has helped us, and I think we've seen a lot more of that. I mean, the homes that we've acquired recently actually had higher fees than we did. And I was a bit like, oh, okay. So I think people are going into that sort of realm. We've done a lot of work over the last few years in our kind of the way we market. So we're a lot more, I talked about this before, but we're a lot more advice-led. So a lot of our blogs, a lot of our website sort of tells people why it costs this much. Kind of gets people into the mindset a little bit earlier, so it means that fee coming down doesn't sound too hard going.
I mean, you don't want that to happen in in the meeting after the visit.
No,
really, you want to get that in there as early as humanly possible. I think, really, don't you? I guess that was why I think it was maybe about 5 or 6 years ago, the competitions authority suggested that you should publish your prices on your website. Yeah,
and I think it's helpful for things like carehome.co.uk and Autumna, which we kind of focus a lot on in terms of our external positioning, ask you to provide that. You can't be on those sites if you're not publishing your prices. Obviously, we always put a range in and we kind of say it's there or thereabouts, but that seems to what you still battle with local authorities in terms of what you want, but you just have to be vigilant and to say, look, this is the care that we're trying to provide, and to do it appropriately, it is X. So do you want to come or not? And I think we have to be a lot stronger than that. I think everybody has to be. A lot of providers, if you're working in that space. You can make the socially funded market work, but you have to be willing to accept that the individuals that you're going to care for are going to be more challenging than if you are, in that realm of where, residential sort of space. But I think if we're all brutally honest with ourselves, it doesn't exist anymore. If you can be looked after at home, stay at home. Like I said, we have a sister business that is just heavily focused on doing that.
The acuity in care homes now is a lot higher.
100%,
isn't it, than it ever has been?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Without shadow of a doubt. And because there are people you can look at. Why wouldn't you want to be in your own home? I've got my nan is 95 years of age, and we look after her in her own home. Yeah, because she can do that.
She can do that.
7 or 8 hours a week, a little bit of TLC support, but it also psychologically helps people because it makes them go, do you know what? I can do this. I'm okay. And then really it's when You need that support, but also the social isolation piece. People do forget that when it comes to a care home.
Yeah.
And I think there has to be a lot more done by care home operators to get that out there, to say, you do realise, okay, but if somebody's on their home on their own and they haven't really got any family and they're only having somebody popping in, there is benefits of being in a care home overriding that, because they've got time to spend with other people. And we all know that being around people and having a community is so much better for your well-being, and we forget that.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, it's a big piece, isn't it, around that idea that, you know, that the loneliness and the isolation can be the thing that gets you, really, can't it?
100%.
Because it just destroys your self-esteem and your morale. And yeah, I think people can sometimes get to the point where they think, well, what's the point anymore?
Yeah, there's a really good TED talk done by Johan Hari. I don't know if you've ever. He's a doctor who's Scottish guy, and he's done a lot of podcasts and things like that, and got a couple of really good books. But he talks about this whole thing about longevity and what's the most important thing. And the number one in the research that he did is community, people, relationships. Coming to that number one. It was more important than some of your health. It was more important than wealth. It was these actually having something to live for. So I think, care homes do really offer that to those people that maybe don't.
Interesting. Okay. So from a business management perspective, having 75% of your revenue come from the local authority, is that challenging? It must be, I suppose either way, right? They're difficult. Are they playing ball better than they were? People have always complained ever since I've been in the sector about, how much fees are and what people are paying, and about the local authorities. There seems to be a bit less moaning at the moment that they're coming along, that they're recognising their part in the story.
100%. There are the local authorities that are more challenging, but there are ones that that we work with that are great. I think the key thing to think about is that if we're flipping it, I'll use your phrase that you start, business management. If you're looking at it from a business perspective, who is my customer? Is it the individual that's in the home? That's the person we're caring for. That's not my customer. My customer is either the family members who are paying the bills, or the solicitors, or the local authorities or the NHS. The less customers you have, the easier it is to negotiate, because you negotiate en masse. So having local authorities does make it easier, because if I take Kent, for example, I've got one customer for 250 people that I can go to and get that fee. And I also it's almost like a block booking, isn't it? I've got that contract in place. Whereas to continually sell to the individuals, yes, okay, I might get £200 or £300 a week more for that individual private, but I've got to negotiate each individual one of those with a family member who may not understand how the net system works. That's hard. And people forget their own time in that process. So you might be getting £250, but how much time have you spent on social media advertising, Google AdWords, magazines, to get that contact and that lead to talk to you? Whereas if we're dealing with the local authority, we've kind of already got that. They're going to refer. So I think there is a bit of that sensible sales that's a bit lost sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, I know one of my homes is heavily local authority, but I know that as soon as we have beds available, I've got a queue of people out the door. Yes, I might be getting a couple of £100 less than I was, but I haven't got to do any marketing, because they're just going to come to us anyway. It's very reactive. So it does work. I think you just have to be very vigilant in the way you do it. You have to be in the right local authorities, and you have to offer the right services.
And I suppose from the perspective of a manager who runs a home that relies on the majority of self-funded, I think is a different manager that relies on the majority of their business to come from the local authority, because it's a slightly different commerciality to it. Do you agree, or is it?
It is.
Well, I was speaking to someone earlier who was saying that one of the main bits of training he's doing at the moment is sales and marketing for home managers, because they're not necessarily being given that right foundations in the commerciality of it.
Agreed. And let's be honest, the care home manager's job is super hard, because I think it's one of the hardest jobs to do in the UK, because you have so many different hats that you have to wear on a day-to-day basis. You're managing people, you're managing problems, you're managing family members, you're managing emotions of different, stakeholders. And then you're asking them to be a salesperson as well, which is why so many of the, the larger high-end groups have customer relation managers or commissioning managers, because they take that away and they do that. So it does make life easier to do it that way. And sometimes you're never going to get quite that sales pitch how you want it to be. You're only going to be as because you're asking them to do something that's outside the comfort zone and is probably 2% of their job. Everything else takes priority. So I think we have to make it fair. And I just think that I found that works for us. I mean, we were predominantly private pre-pandemic. You know, the pivot we had to make because we were 40% occupancy. Post-pandemic, I was like, I had to do something. It kind of just naturally ended up going that way. And it does work. It makes that easier. But yeah, we're constantly trying to support with helping managers and associate team members within the homes to be more proactive, you know, and guide them on how to sell and how to answer calls and how to respond to leads. But that is always going to be a challenge, I think, because it's not the natural position of somebody. They're coming in to care for somebody, not to fill a service.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, it's so interesting ideas and thoughts, and I think, you know, an interesting way of looking at it. I was going to note the furniture.
Yes.
You might recognise some of this furniture.
Hammond's.
Yeah, Amara Hammond
Yes.
furniture. I saw you've been working with them, weren't you?
We've worked with them on a couple of projects now, and I was having a conversation with Russell only earlier, actually, about looking at some more. Doing really well.
Nice.
Really good. Very good attention to detail, and that's always a bonus.
Yeah, and how the home looks and feels is really important. I really like Russell's approach to localising the design.
Yeah, it's funny to say that. So the first ever project we did, I think we were one of their first customers when it was just Russell, kind of, you know, when the business was starting 3 or 4 years ago now. Maybe before that, thinking about it. Yeah, and we did one of our homes down in Kent, Madeira Lodge, which is basically on the seafront. And he sort of worked to make the day space, the activities, and one of the lounges very much like this beach hut, because there was a photo of a beach hut when he first found it with that pastel blues and the whites, and that's what it ends up looking like still today. And the video that's on, which you guys did, actually, was in that room where you can see it's got that. So that was all Amara Hammond that did all of that.
Okay,
and obviously you guys did the video for us.
Yeah,
So
okay, I should tell Russell, actually, that we've got a video about it.
Yeah,
Maybe
we
he
have,
doesn't
yeah.
realise,
So there's kind of like a loop back that. And all the photos on our site is all that, and the videos are the videos that you guys did at 5 and a Bite.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for coming into the studio. It's been
Pleasure.
great to see you again, as ever.
Yeah,
and
thank you.
congratulations on your acquisitions of your homes,
Yeah. Fingers crossed.
to many more.
Thank you. Cheers.
Cheers, Adam. Thank you. We'll be back shortly.